See, most people don't fail because they aimed too high and missed. They fail because they aimed too low and hit. You're praying for a breakthrough, but you're scared to break out of the mindset that's been keeping you broke. You're asking God to enlarge your territory, but you're still thinking in terms of survival when He created you for dominion. Let me break something to you that most people won't dare say out loud. Thinking small is not humility. It's not wisdom. It's not being realistic. Thinking small is disobedience. And the longer you keep calling it caution, the longer you'll stay stuck in a cycle that God never designed for you. You see, when you minimize your vision, when you downplay your dreams, when you shrink your calling to make other people comfortable, you're not being holy. You're being rebellious. Because the same God who created the galaxies, who engineered the oceans, who formed the stars and told them where to shine, that same God breathed His power, His purpose, and His creativity into you. And every time you choose to think small, you're choosing to dishonor what He deposited in you. Let me ask you, who told you it was noble to stay average? Who told you it was righteous to dream small? Who told you that playing it safe was the same as walking by faith? Because it wasn't God. That came from fear. That came from failure. That came from people who settled in life and want you to settle with them. Let me tell you something loud and clear. God didn't create you to blend in. He created you to break barriers. And the reason many people never experience His abundance is not because He's withholding anything. It's because their vision is too small to receive it. Stop praying for rain if you're only holding a cup. Faith doesn't bring a cup to the downpour. Faith brings barrels. You're asking for overflow, but you're still thinking in terms of what's reasonable. Since when did God operate by reason? He called Moses to part seas. He called David to slay giants. He called a teenage girl named Mary to birth a savior. And you think He's intimidated by your student loans, your broken background, your lack of followers? Please, your small thinking is the only thing limiting a limitless God. The truth is, thinking small is easier. It doesn't require courage. It doesn't demand action. It doesn't threaten your pride. But big thinking, that requires boldness. That requires faith, as it helps. So that requires stepping into rooms where you feel unqualified and still showing up like you belong, because you do. God didn't ask you to be perfect. He asked you to believe. And belief starts with what you allow yourself to imagine. If you can't imagine bigger, you'll never build bigger. But here's what small thinking really does. It keeps you in spiritual disobedience, because God's command was be fruitful and multiply, not be careful and maintain. God's call was to subdue the earth, not to survive in it. When you play small, you're hiding the light He told you to shine. When you make excuses, you're bearing the talents He told you to multiply. He didn't give you that gift so you could manage it. He gave it so you could explode it. And the world is waiting for what only you can deliver. But not in this watered down, minimized, compromised version. They need the full version, the bold version, the God-backed no limits version. The devil doesn't need to destroy you. If he can just convince you to stay small, you'll do it yourself. That's why the battlefield is always in the mind. That's why your thinking is the first thing that has to change. Because when you raise your standard of thought, your results will have no choice but to follow. But if you keep thinking like a victim, you'll keep living like one. So the next time you catch yourself shrinking back, playing safe, or talking yourself out of a dream, stop and ask, am I being wise or am I being disobedient? Because when God gives you a vision, It's not a suggestion. It's an assignment. And he will not bless the version of you that you pretend to be. He will only bless the version that aligns with who he created you to become. Everybody loves to say, I'm just waiting on God. It sounds spiritual. It sounds safe. It sounds holy. But let me challenge you with something that might shake your theology. What if you're not waiting on God? What if he's waiting on you? See, waiting can feel like faith, but oftentimes it's fear wearing a mask. We say we're waiting for clarity, for confirmation, for the right time. But underneath all that religious language is hesitation, procrastination, and spiritual laziness. We say we trust God, but we won't take a step until we see the whole staircase. That's not trust. That's control. God moves at the speed of your obedience, not your prayers, not your intentions. Obedience. And that's where the rubber meets the road. Some of you have been fasting, praying, journaling, attending conferences, watching sermons, and reading books, and that's all good. But let's be honest. You're hiding behind preparation because you're scared of execution. The truth is God already gave you the instruction. He already gave you the idea. He already put the vision in your heart. And now he's waiting to see what you're going to do with it. Think about Moses. God didn't split the Red Sea and then tell Moses to walk. No, Moses had to stretch out his hand first. That action activated the miracle. And it's the same with you. God is not going to move until you move because he honors movement. He honors faith in motion. You're asking God to bless what you're not even building yet. You want him to rain down favor on a field you haven't even plowed. It doesn't work like that. Heaven doesn't respond to hesitation. The heaven responds to faith in action as it helps us. You see, the problem isn't that you don't believe God is able. It's that you don't believe he'll show up for you. You believe in miracles for other people. You clap when it happens to them. But deep down, you've let past disappointments convince you that you're the exception. That maybe your dream is too late, your mistake too big, your resources too small. But let me tell you something with authority. God has never been limited by your limitations. He's just waiting on your cooperation. You don't need another sign. You don't need more time. You don't need everyone's approval. What you need is to decide. Decide to trust him. Decide to move even if the plan isn't perfect. Decide to build even if the blueprint isn't complete. Some of the biggest breakthroughs come not when the path is clear, but when the faith is real. God isn't asking for perfect steps. He's asking for bold ones. Too many people are paralyzed by indecision. But indecision is still a decision. It's a decision to stay stuck. A decision to delay your destiny, a decision to ignore the call because comfort feels safer than courage. But let me tell you, a delayed obedience is disobedience. And there are doors that will never open until you knock. There are blessings that will never activate until you move. There are miracles that are tied not to your prayers, but to your participation. So no, you're not waiting on God. He's already done his part. He's already released the word, opened the opportunity, and positioned the provision. Now he's watching to see if you'll move in faith or stay stuck in fear. Will you walk through the open door, or will you wait for someone to carry you through it? Because let me tell you, God is not obligated to finish what you refuse to start. And he is not required to bless what you're too afraid to build. There comes a point where you stop asking for confirmation and start walking in conviction, where you stop waiting for the right moment and realize you were born for this moment. You've prayed long enough. You've planned long enough. You've prepared long enough. Now it's time to move, because God is not delaying your destiny. Your delay is delaying your destiny. He's waiting on your yes. And the moment you say it and mean it, everything changes. One of the biggest reasons people stay stuck in mediocrity is because their goals are too small. Not because they lack ability, not because they don't have access, but because they are aiming low and calling it wisdom. You weren't created to play defense with your dreams. You weren't born to survive. You were born to expand, dominate, and multiply. And the reason you're frustrated isn't because God is holding you back. It's because you keep setting goals that never stretch your faith, never challenge your character, and never require his intervention. Your goals are so small, you don't even need God's help to reach them. And that's the problem. You want God-sized results while setting man-sized goals, and it doesn't work that way. God honors faith, not fear. He moves where there's bold expectation, not where there's safe hesitation. A small goal may protect your ego from failure, but it also blocks you from accessing the supernatural. You were not wired for average. You were built to disrupt industries, shift atmospheres, and change legacies. But none of that can happen when you're still setting goals that make sense to your past instead of goals that align with your purpose. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time your goal scared you? I'm talking about the kind of goal that makes your knees shake and your voice tremble, not because you don't believe it can happen, as it helps us, but because you know it's so much bigger than what you can do on your own. That's the kind of goal that stretches your faith, forces your growth, and attracts divine favor. If your goals are easy, comfortable, and completely in your control, you're not dreaming, you're managing. And God didn't call you to manage. He called you to multiply. You know what the real tragedy is? Most people hit their goals. That's right. But it's not a victory. It's a tragedy. Because they hit goals that were too small in the first place. They aimed low enough to guarantee a win, instead of aiming high enough to require God. It's not impressive to achieve something you never had to fight for. It's not fulfilling to win a race that never made you sweat. You don't grow by reaching what's easy. You grow by becoming the kind of person who can reach what once felt impossible. And that only happens when your goals pull you beyond your comfort zone and push you into your calling. Let's be clear, this isn't about yachts and jets, unless those tools are part of your assignment. This is about creating margin so you can move with mission. It's about getting out of debt so your vision can go forward without shackles. It's about creating systems that serve people, solve problems, and fund purpose, and doing it without constantly worrying about how to pay the rent. There's nothing noble about lack when it's hindering your calling. Jesus didn't walk around broke. His ministry had a treasurer. When he needed a place for the Last Supper, it was prepared. When he needed a donkey to ride into Jerusalem, it was provided. Why? Because purpose always attracts provision. The problem is, you've been trained to shrink your purpose to match your paycheck. Instead, you need to expand your vision to match your calling. You need to stop thinking of wealth as indulgence and start seeing it as assignment fuel. You need to stop saying, I don't need much, and start asking, how many people can I bless if I had more? Because small thinking doesn't just limit your life, it limits your legacy. If the enemy can keep you broke, he can keep you distracted. And if you're distracted, you'll never walk fully in your calling. Money in the hands of someone with a kingdom mindset becomes a weapon. It feeds the hungry. It builds the dream. It speaks louder than excuses. It gives you the power to say yes to your purpose and no to every limitation. So don't apologize for wanting more. Apologize for settling for less when God positioned you for more. The question isn't, should I want to be wealthy? The real question is, am I willing to become the kind of person who can handle it for the glory of God? Because once your heart is aligned, wealth is no longer a distraction. It becomes your assignment's amplifier. And that's when your life moves from survival to significance. One of the greatest traps the enemy uses isn't failure. It's comfort, because failure will teach you something. But comfort will lull you into sleep while your calling dies quietly in the background. Comfort feels good in the moment. It offers safety, predictability, and relief. But if you ever want to know what's truly killing your destiny, don't just look at your problems, look at your patterns. And more often than not, those patterns revolve around avoiding pain, avoiding growth, avoiding anything that stretches you beyond what you've already mastered. You can't live in your comfort zone and walk in your calling at the same time. It's one or the other. And that's what most people don't want to admit. They want the results of a high impact life without the discomfort that forges it. They want the breakthrough without the battle, the influence without the sacrifice, the glory without the grind. But let me tell you something plain, your next level will never show up in the place where you're most comfortable. God didn't call you to ease. He called you to elevation. And elevation always costs comfort. The Bible is full of people who were called out of comfort. Abraham had to leave his country. Moses had to go back to the place he escaped. Esther had to risk her life in front of a king. Jesus left the perfection of heaven for the pain of the cross. And here you are thinking your purpose will unfold while you sit on the couch binge watching success stories. No, it doesn't work like that. You want big results. Step into uncomfortable obedience. Most people think the enemy is trying to destroy them with problems. No. He's trying to distract them with comfort, because the more comfortable you get with average, the less urgency you'll feel for transformation. You'll stop pressing. You'll stop praying bold prayers. You'll stop chasing that vision God placed in your heart. Comfort will convince you that later is an acceptable plan. But later is the lie comfort tells to people who secretly don't want to grow. Comfort never demands faith. It never forces you to dig deeper. It never drives you to become more. But your calling will expose your insecurities. It will test your discipline. It will require you to let go of who you've been in order to become who you're meant to be. That's why most people avoid it. They don't want transformation. They want convenience. And as long as convenience runs your decisions, your purpose will always be postponed. You weren't created for stagnation. You weren't built to live a life that looks like yesterday on repeat. Every gift God placed in you was designed to grow, stretch, and multiply. And that only happens under pressure. The same way a muscle doesn't grow until it's challenged, your calling doesn't rise until it's resisted. So stop interpreting resistance as a sign you're doing something wrong. Sometimes resistance is the proof you're finally doing something right. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. It will feed your ego, but it will starve your purpose. It will protect your pride, but it will delay your progress. If you're truly serious about stepping into what God created you to do, you have to stop chasing what's easy and start chasing what's eternal. You have to stop asking for convenient routes and start asking for character building roads. Because what's convenient might impress people, but what's uncomfortable will transform nations. Don't let your addiction to comfort rob you of the future that was tailor-made for your calling. The uncomfortable moments are the sacred spaces where God shapes your resilience, tests your obedience, and qualifies you for what's next. If you want to be used mightily, you must be stretched deeply. Stop running from that stretch. Embrace it. Lean into it. That tension you feel is not a sign to quit. It's the signal that purpose is near. And once you break through that barrier of comfort, you'll discover the kind of power, clarity, and authority you've been praying for all along.